This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Kenya revises refugee camps June next year. Dozens killed in a stampede at a Jewish shrine in northern Israel. And Somali President Farmajo to appear before Parliament on Saturday to seek approval for fresh elections. Hello, welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta live in Nairobi, and for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. And tonight I'm alongside my colleague Uche, who has our business headlines. Uche.
Thank you, Richard. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. Pharmaceutical company AstraZeneca reports better than expected results for the first quarter of 2021. And no more air traffic controllers at London's City Airport. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, it is back to Richard.
Thank you so much, Uche. Once again, welcome to Africa Live. So good to have you with us. We begin in Kenya, where the country has told the United Nations it plans to repatriate some refugees and grant residency to others. Kenya's response was in line with the UN's request to ensure vulnerable refugees would be protected. This is after Kenya announced it will shut camps holding over 410,000 refugees by June 2022. Refugees fleeing violence in East Africa and the Horn of Africa have found refuge in the Kakuma and Dadaab camps. Authorities in Nairobi first announced their intention to close in 2016. They cited security concerns over infiltration by militants from the Al-Shabaab group. Earlier this month, a Kenyan court ruled against the closure of the camps. Further legal challenges could follow. President Mohamed Farmajo is expected to address Parliament on Saturday in a bid to restore a deal made last year for a proposed electoral framework. The September 2020 agreement refers to a process under which clan elders select delegates for electoral colleges. The Electoral College then chooses federal lawmakers who then finally pick a president. On Tuesday, Farmajo called for a new presidential election. In the meantime, the African Union is expected to send a special envoy efforts to resolve a stalemate over the polls.
People are worried about what the president will say before the parliament tomorrow. I believe the president will ask them to cancel the term extension and return to the negotiating table based on September 2nd. The MPs of the lower house have two options tomorrow. Either they turn the country into chaos and violence because the army is divided, or lead the country towards elections to overcome the political stalemate. People hope that the MPs will approve the president's request and save them from displacement.
There has been tension in Mogadishu after rival factions of the security forces clashed over the controversial extension of President Farmajo's mandate. CGTN's Robert Nagila takes us through how we got here.
The latest political crisis can be traced back to December, when the selection of lawmakers by clan elders was postponed. The opposition accused President Mohamed Farmajo of attempting to extend his term in office. The lawmakers were due to choose a president in February. On April 12th, the lower house of parliament passed a vote extending the current administration's term for an additional 2 years. But a week later, the UN Security Council rejected the extension of the president's term. The UNSC hit the electoral impasse. Tensions, sparked by the delay of the February elections, exploded as rival sides exchanged gunfire in the capital. But as government and opposition troops fortified their positions around Mogadishu, President Farmajo caved into pressure. On April 28th, in a televised address to the nation, the president called for elections and urged all stakeholders to return to dialogue. After Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble and the leaders of two key states rejected the term extension. Mohamed became president in 2017 after getting 184 votes from lawmakers against 97 by the then incumbent President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud. Robert Nagila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
The death toll from a stampede has risen to 44. Tens of thousands of ultra-Orthodox Jews had gathered in a pilgrimage to the tomb of a second-century rabbi. About 150 people were hospitalized, 6 of them in critical condition. Our correspondent Stephanie Freed spoke to us earlier from Mount Meron, the scene of the disaster.
Overcrowding and basically just a crush. What happened is, this is a small area, this holy area, and it's considered a holy pilgrimage to come up here. People were here for the annual pilgrimage, and when they were trying to move out, apparently, there was a push and a crush, and somebody or several people slipped and fell. It was nighttime. These stairs that I'm standing on were slippery, slipped and fell, and then other people fell on top of them, and it created basically a domino effect and stampeding. And when you talk about, that's the reports that we're getting, tens of thousands of people here. And the thing is, this is no different than in past years, and the state comptroller apparently issued a warning 10 years ago about safety concerns around these exact issues at this site, at this annual event. So it was a combination of factors, but it's been warned about for years. And this year, as Israel's chief rabbi said, in past years there were miracles. This year there was no miracle around this event and the tragedy that happened.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has extended condolences to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi over the coronavirus situation in his country. Xi Jinping said China is willing to work with India in the fight against the pandemic and offer support and assistance. He said only by uniting can countries win the battle. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said China has sent at least 26,000 oxygen generators and ventilators, as well as 3,800 tons of medicine to India in recent days. India is reporting another record for daily coronavirus infections as global cases hit 150 million. It's confirmed 380,000 new cases, but medical experts believe actual figures may be much higher. And the country is experiencing a shortage of medical supplies, especially oxygen. Our correspondent has more from Delhi.
Many districts who do not have the adequate health infrastructure will be facing a major issue because a lot of who are in these districts are not professionally trained properly to handle such cases, even though the government in the first wave had tried to impart training through online media to all these healthcare workers. And also, the districts have limited number of ventilators or oxygen cylinders. So we've already started getting those pictures from smaller districts and areas where people are scrambling over cylinders. There are fights, and it is causing a lot of chaos on the ground. The administration is also clueless. Things in smaller towns and cities will become more serious if it is not contained right now, but probably the whole focus right now is on Delhi, which is facing a major shortage of oxygen, and these towns and cities come secondary, but it is time that the government really needs to take care of these smaller towns and cities and the people. Right now an empowered group has been formed who is in consultation with the health ministry trying to distribute these medical supplies to the most. Of course, it will take, there is custom clearances and all those things to be taken care of, and then only they will be sent to these states where the requirement is high, and that might take a day. All those formalities are being completed. The supplies are still coming in, and states are trying to make their own list as to what they need. But definitely all this will become chaotic if it is not really implemented to the T and in all fairness, which sometimes becomes a problem because of the political games that are played. But let's hope that doesn't happen, because the situation on the ground is really bad. People are suffering, and it's, the sooner they get the benefit of all these medical supplies, the better it is. So I guess the government will coordinate with the state government, the central government, and will get to distribute this as soon as possible.
The Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention warns the continent must be prepared to avoid a COVID-19 surge like that of India. The Africa CDC advised member states to enforce rules and restrictions, including wearing face masks and banning. Here is CGTN's Gurum Challa with more.
According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Africa so far registered 4.5 million coronavirus cases across its member states. The director for the Continental Health Body, however, says there is more for the continent to worry about. He warns the amount of new cases in India could be repeated in Africa.
They are now reporting about 350,000 cases a day. That is a scenario where it is catastrophic for the health system, for any health system to bear. So that is why we are really saying as a continent, we need to regroup urgently and discuss ways to get ourselves prepared. It's better to be over-prepared and not have that scenario than to be surprised by that scenario.
Africa's CDC strongly appeals to African states to strictly disallow mass gatherings and enforce face mask wearing at all times.
Do not have mass gathering. Do not have a mass gathering. Promote the opportunity for the virus to replicate, and we'll find ourselves in where India is. Period. We cannot be complacent and begin to have these large gatherings then.
The other hope for Africa to curb the effects of the pandemic is on vaccines, and so far 31.7 million doses have entered the continent, with 17.9 million of them administered. However, vaccine shortage being seen globally might make Africa pay a heavy price if not solved as soon as possible. Group Jara CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
The COVID-19 pandemic has claimed in Nigeria, and that is the treatment of tuberculosis. With attention turned towards fighting the coronavirus, early detection and treatment of TB has fallen by the wayside, hitting record highs. Tassim Akinde reports.
For most of last year, 47-year-old Garba Ibrahim suffered from tuberculosis. He couldn't get treatment at hospitals because most hospitals were overwhelmed attending to COVID-19 patients. Eventually, he found a hospital run by the NGO, Faith Alive, who took him in.
I had checked about 3 hospitals for treatment, but they didn't give me attention. I was fortunate to identify this place, and they considered my situation. It was during the lockdown, all attention was about COVID-19, so we who had TB were not considered at all.
While Garba found help, others haven't been so lucky. The national program says about 60% of cases went unnoticed and untreated last year, with 18 Nigerians now dying every hour from the disease. New cases have also hit a record, 47 every hour, 7 of which are children.
Currently, there's a rise in our tuberculosis cases for 2 reasons. When you see patients who cough, automatically you assume are COVID patients. If you see patients that sneeze, automatically you assume they are COVID patients. So there's stigma towards COVID, forgetting that the major killer disease, TB, is still with us.
Experts say health workers need to pay more attention to tuberculosis patients and adopt better ways of identifying the diseases which share similar symptoms.
And it's important that we look at this together so that people don't die and the menace don't keep increasing and increasing because we are looking away from what we have at hand.
The World Health Organization says Nigeria is far from achieving its 2025 national target of halving TB cases and slashing mortality by 75%. But local authorities say they are doing their best to hit it. The Nigerian government has promised to prioritize detection, diagnosis and treatment of tuberculosis across the country. The main focus will be teaching people, especially those in rural areas, about the need to seek medical care early. And with such measures in place, more people with symptoms of TB could get diagnosed and treated in time with harrowing experiences of Garba. Tassim Akinde, CGTN Jos, Nigeria.
The news continues on Africa Live. We will see you on the other side of the break. Here's a look at what's ahead. Libya calls for EU assistance as fears of a new wave of illegal migration to Europe grows. And concern as triple threat of conflict and hunger looms in South Sudan.
Africa is a continent of diversity. with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo,
Sharia,
Juba,
Johannesburg,
Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
I believe we only need a tool to bring change. It can be educational background, it can be a skill, it can be a hobby of what you love.
Kibira yenyewe ilikuwa mbaya kitambo, kulikuwa na waizi wengi sana. Na siku hizi yenyewe hata unaweza kaa bila kusikia hata mwizi ameshikwa mahali ama amechomwa ama amefanywa nini. Ndio naona yenyewe Kibira raundime si kama kitambo.
Welcome back to Africa Live. We appreciate your company. Thanks for sticking with us. The bodies of 2 Spanish journalists and an Irish citizen killed in an armed ambush in Burkina Faso have arrived in Spain. The bodies of the 3 men were received at a military air base in Torrejon de Ardoz.
The fight against terrorism in these areas will not stop, and we are going to be relentless about it. We will do everything possible to clarify what happened.
At least 171 migrants drowned a week ago in the Mediterranean, and hundreds more have been intercepted at sea this week. Libya's unity government is requesting more assistance from the EU as fears grow of a new wave of illegal migration to Europe. CGTN's Adel El Mahroui.
During the first 4 months of 2021, at least 488 migrants died on their way to Europe. Migration is beginning.
There are no Libyan security forces covering the whole. It's 2,000 kilometers long. The eastern coast is 1,500 kilometers. The Libyan National Army's presence is strong. There is no strong migration activity there. The western coast, however, is the weakest link. Militias there benefit a lot from illegal migration, and that's why it's active.
In March 2019, the European Union suspended its Mediterranean rescue operations, fearing that they were migrants to cross. Only charity rescue organizations operate now, but they are unable to keep up with the flow of migrants. It's why Libya is demanding more from the EU to stop this humanitarian situation.
The UN and EU's role is shrinking, whether that be in dealing with the Mediterranean crossing or in stopping the flow of migrants from their home countries. The UN and Europe focus on preventing these migrants from reaching Europe, while the reason these people travel for thousands of kilometers to ride death boats to Europe persists. The UN and Europe need to create jobs, improve humanitarian conditions in the home countries.
Compared to 2020, more migrants have attempted to cross the Mediterranean this year. And from January 1st to date, the death toll from this dangerous route has increased 3-fold. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
The United Nations Children Fund says the recent surge in violence in the Northeast Democratic Republic of Congo has worsened the plight of women and children. More than 270 children are reported to have been separated from their parents in the Ituri province as a result of the ongoing unrest. CGTN's Chris Ochomoringa has more in this report.
Inter-ethnic clashes have flared up in the DRC's northeastern province of Ituri in recent months. Clashes are between the Lendu and Hema communities that have had a long history of rivalry over land and political power. UNICEF says the fighting has led to an increase in attacks on schools and the recruitment of children into armed groups.
We've seen a deterioration of the security situation, which has caused a serious humanitarian
province, and 1.6 million people are estimated to be displaced since the beginning of the year. Has described the situation as a desperate humanitarian crisis. The Congolese government has sent troops to end the fighting, but the soldiers haven't yet been able to stop it. The UN Children's Agency has launched an appeal to the international community to step up its support to enable the displaced people in Ituri province to access basic services. Chris Sochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
The United Nations World Food Program says it's facing a fund of $86 million to feed about 1.2 million refugees in Uganda. The food agency warns it may be forced to slash food rations for a third time in less than a year. Isabel Nikiria reports.
It's a lifeline for more than 1 million refugees, but there are stark warnings about the future of this food program. A funding shortfall